Welcome to Darshan America, folks. We come to you from Washington, D.C. My name is Ramesh Bhutani.
And I'm Aastha Verma.
Well, folks, the story of the week still remains Wisconsin. This week, governor sent out an ultimatum. The Democrats that are hiding out in Illinois, be here in 24 hours, otherwise we'll have to really cut very deep. Now, what is the issue? The Time magazine, as well as Bloomberg Business, has done a fantastic stories. In fact, the report has been wonderful all across the country. Everyone wants to understand what these bargaining rights are that are being taken away by the governor of Wisconsin and 5 other states, by the way. So it's either a conspiracy or a real attempt to understand how the unions operate and cut it if you feel it's not good for the country. So I'm going to give you one that I know of extremely well. When you get a paycheck, by law, you're not even allowed to deduct if the employee has taken a loan from the employer. You're not allowed to deduct. The employer has to pay you. But in the case of union dues, the union dues are taken at the source, which is at the employer, at the state government, at the municipal government, and then sent it out to the union as much as 3,000 miles away or 5,000 miles away. Now, that's the one thing that they believe, that if you take that out, let the employees send the union dues out of their own paycheck. They believe that'll reduce the unions. That's the number one approach they have. Number two approach they have is, there are organizations and companies that need to be licensed every year. So what they want is for them to be certified every year through their membership that, yes, that they want to continue. And only thing they want to discuss with them is salaries. Now, in the last 10 to 15 years, it has been so easy for the strength of the union to get a Democrat or a Republican elected. So what occurs is those who are in power, helped by those who put them in power, negotiate with each other about the health benefits or pensions and the others. And when the government says, well, look, I don't have enough money to pay you pension, well, then they say, don't worry, pay me 10 years from now. You don't have to fund all of it. Let's fund 70%, 60%. Now, imagine the same thing on a private company. Would that ever happen? No. Private company can say simply, hey, banks will stop giving them loans and they'll be out of business.
Unions are like any other business, have to sustain themselves, and they have to sustain themselves here through dues, which they can only guarantee if they have members. So what you've exposed here is one dirty little secret maybe on how to get memberships to stay sustained level. Basically, if the employee has to pay them out of their own paycheck, you might not join the union unless you can see some tangible benefit to yourself. But what gets me is if we demand transparency from our corporations, if we have a form of reporting or understanding the internal mechanisms, there's Sarbanes-Oxley for businesses because of the financial meltdown. Why don't we have better transparency into how unions work? And why don't unions make themselves very transparent? Because then you wouldn't fear them as these gigantic lobby groups that are taking advantage somehow of the government. That's the angle that the government has presented, that these unions have taken advantage of us by negotiating these deals. Well, the government was an equal participant. And taking away the right to assemble to ask for something isn't the solution. The solution is to sit down and solve the financial numbers problem that we have. Mm-hmm. And I was reading a poll on this, actually it was in the news, that 60% of Americans actually do not favor the idea of getting rid of collective bargaining as a way to solve the financial crisis. They would rather see investment towards people coming to the table to figure out the financial crisis.
This is what it is between 1930s and 1970s was the heyday for the unions, and it's absolutely true that when you joined a union, you actually joined the middle class because they got you more money. For instance, today, and I'll give you a real close example right here in the District of Columbia. If you want to be a construction laborer, your salary is about $14.50 an hour. It costs about $17 an hour to have a laborer in the District of Columbia. But what does a laborer allowed to do? On a District of Columbia construction project, a laborer can only move materials, okay, do demolition with a small tool, and that's it. I mean, for instance, if you're to remove a roof, you remove a roof by 12 o'clock. But when it comes time to install it, you cannot use the same labor unless you pay him $24 an hour. That's the kind of rules sometimes that you get confronted with. And one of the other very good ideas was that, look, every industry has changed. Every industry has actually improved itself. Take retail, take technology, take, ordinary business, even construction, estimating, anything you can think of. But the government has not changed because of those union rules. So what they're saying is time. Time for the government employees to reinvent themselves. As long as they're innovative, they will be paid accordingly.
Part of the reason you have the impasse is because you have so many protests going on there. But I think the unions are also doing well because economically the country's still struggling. So people believe fundamentally that if they're with a union, their likelihood of keeping their job is increased. So I think the government is, if they're thinking that the unions are just going to back down easily off of this issue, they're not, because this is a fundamental right.
No, it's a fundamental survival. I mean, if this goes away, they mostly go away because they're only 6% of the regular population of the industry. It's only in the government that they're so entrenched. And as you have seen, some of the Democrats have started to grumble about it too, and state of California, state of New York, the real blue states are coming up and trying to trim the unions. I absolutely believe in the fairness, and the fairness is you cannot help elect a government and then negotiate with that government for your survival. And Davis-Bacon Wage Act says that you cannot deduct